So mean is one of the three measurement of statistic. So there's mean, mode, median. So mean is the most common kind. You will have learned about that in primary school. So in primary school is you learn about average. So we use the average to have a certain idea whether certain thing is performing good or not performing good. So for example, if there is a math test, okay, and we want to know which class did better, because each class there's a lot of students. So you might take the average of each class to see who actually did better. Okay, so that's just a very, very basic idea. So there's quite a few form of mean. So the easiest one will be, right, you are given a set of numbers and you are going to find the average. So if you are given a set of numbers, you just need to add up all the numbers. So you add up, you get the sum of the numbers. So you just get the sum of the numbers and then you divide by the how many data are there. So in this case, you will get 45. And if you look right, there are 6 numbers. So the mean will be 45 divided by 6. So on average, okay, so if you do that, you will get around 7.5. So you average out that 6 numbers, you get 7.5. Okay, so some questions that are related will be, so if let's say you got 5 numbers and you know the mean is 36. So if you got the mean right, the first thing you have to relate to will be, you should be able to find the total for the 5 numbers. So you might want to visualize it this way right now. So now I got the average for the 5 numbers. If I average out the 5 numbers, it's 36 each. So I should be able to get the total for the 5 numbers. So the total for these 5 numbers should be 36 times 5. So if you have the average, you should be able to relate to the total. Then after that, we are given some information. So this is 28. This is a 31. This is a 39. And the other 2 numbers are x. So from here, it's actually quite easy for you to set up an equation. And then subsequently, you find your x. So if you are given the mean of a set of info, you should be able to relate to the total. Okay, so right now, in the same way, it's the same thing for the next one. So now I got the average for 6 numbers. So when the average of the 6 numbers is 21, that means the total for these 6 numbers should be 21 times 6. And then we are going to add on a 7 number. We're going to add on another number. And I'm going to get a new average. So if I add on a new number, so I should be able to find out the total for the 7 number. So I'm going to find out the total for the 7 numbers with the new average. So from here, I can actually find what was the new number that has been added on. So the new number that is added on will be the difference between the 2 total. Okay, so that's how you should relate mean. Mean is like average. So whenever average is given to you, you relate it to the total. Okay, so of course you'll be asked to calculate mean for in a variety of ways. So you can be asked to calculate mean from a frequency table. You can be asked to calculate mean from a dot diagram. It doesn't change the idea. So if you need a mean, you will need average, you will need the total. So do some interpretation first. So for example, in example 7, okay, the table show the allowance, the transport allowance given to the employees. So here I got 8 employees given $50 each. So here I will have 15 employees being given $80 each. So of course, please be able to interpret what is the table trying to tell you. Okay, so we're going to answer the question, the total number of employee. So that's quite easy. You just have to add up everything here. Then you can get the total number of employee. So in this case, I got 45 employee. Okay, what is the total monthly transport allowance? So how much do you end up giving to all the employees? So these 8 of them will have received $50 each. So from the 8 of them, I gave them $50 each. From these 15 employees, I gave them $80 each. Okay, and then the 12 employees, each of them got 100 each. So this is how you calculate. If you interpret correctly, you will understand how do you calculate the total allowance. So I got 6 of them getting 120 each. So then 4 of them will get 150. So do the interpretation. If you use your sense of thinking with some interpretation, you will understand why we are actually doing all this. So this is the total amount that the company gave to the employees. So this is the total amount given to 45 employees. So if you would like to find the average, so 4120 is the total allowance given to the 45 employees. So what is the average? That means on average, right, how much actually one person receive? So you divide it with the 45 employee. So you realize they got around, on average, this is the amount they got. I mean that's not the real case, of course. Each of them, they got different amount, but on average, right, this is what they are getting. So the same interpretation goes for dot diagram. So the dot diagram represents the number of prawns caught by 16 people. So you should find 16 dots. So if you would like the average number of prawns per person, so I should be finding the total number of prawns first. So 2 of them caught 6 prawns each. 2 of them caught 7 prawns each. There's 1 of them who caught 8 prawns. Another one caught 11 prawns. And there are 4 of them who caught 12 prawns each. So you have some interpretation. You realize that it's actually quite easy. But if you don't read, if you don't bother to read, then of course all the number doesn't make sense to you. So from here, you could find the total number of prawns. Okay, you can try to punch a calculator up. And then the mean number of prawns will be whatever you have divided by 16 people. Okay, so it doesn't change the idea what does average means. It's just that you need to interpret accordingly. So of course, you can also be doing the mean from stem and leaf. So from the stem and leaf, you would like to know the mean. Again, you must get the total time first. So in this stem and leaf, right, it represents the amount of time, and the units is in hours. A teacher spent on writing testimonial. So I got one teacher who spent 36 hours. And I got another teacher spending 42 hours. Another teacher spending 43 hours. Another one spending 44 hours. So you do the interpretation. So from here, you can actually find out how many teachers are there. So the number of teachers. So if you count the number of leave, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So there are 8 teachers if you count the number of leave. So if you would like the total time, you got to be adding up. So that's just adding up. And you get the total amount of time. So if you would like the average time, you should get the total divided by 8. So that's the amount of hours on average teacher was spent to write a testimonial. So it's just a different context. Okay, so same thing here. If you have a histogram, okay, so this histogram shows the number of library book each person borrowed. So we gotta interpret. So each person borrowed. So here we got 1, 2, 5 students. So 1, 2, 5 people, they borrowed 1 book each. Then we got, maybe this one is 175. So if you read, there is 175. So what does that represent? It represents 175 people borrow 2 books each. So again, you actually need to get the total number of books and the total number of people borrowing the books. So you got to be writing down all the information first. So after you write out the information, right? Okay. Again, if you like the average, right, you need to know the total number of books and the total number of people. So you need to do your separate calculation first. How many people are borrowing books? So the people borrowing books are just the frequency. So you add up all the frequency. So it's actually quite easy, not much algebra, except that you might punch wrongly. So these are the number of people borrowing books. How many books are being borrowed? So what are the total number of books? Borrowed by this number of people. So again, you go for the interpretation. So 125 borrowed 1 each. 175 borrowed 2 each. 225 borrow 3 each. So subsequently, you do the same thing. There are 125 people borrow 4 each. 100 of them borrow 5 each. So the numbers are pretty big. So when you try to total up number of books, it's actually quite a lot. And there are 25 of them who borrow 8 books each. So this will be the total number of books. So if you would like the mean, that means average out how many books do they borrow, you take the total and you divide by the number of people. So the interpretation will be right. On average, one person borrowed this amount of books. So when you do mean, right, it has got to do with a lot of interpretation, but mainly we need the total and how many people are there.